welcoming everybody to another episode of the No Sideline series here of the Tony Cutillo Show, where we go deep behind the curtain, no media spin, just the answers. And tonight, another fantastic guest. Got my guy, Sia Nejad, at Sia Nejad, Sianegad on X. He is the host and analyst. Listen, man, God does it all. Sportsline, CBS Sports, FF Today. He's sports betting, DFS. Listen, runs a fantastic Discord, Positive Works. You hear him on Sirius XM Fantasy. He's got a brand new show called No Plays Off. This guy was an attorney to big pharma to now sports betting. Man, we're just going to get into it. See you. What's up, buddy?
What's up, man? I like, it's funny to hear that out loud, that when I'm not saying it, it's like, wait, what is this backstory? This is crazy. But honestly, it's great being on. Every time we're on, no matter the context, whether it's Sirius XM or whether it's on one of your other shows or this particular show, you are one of the most engaging people in the industry. So I'm always happy to be on with you.
Listen, man, it means a lot. I appreciate it. And like I said, I've always said this, I get just positive. You're in an industry, let's be honest, and we'll get into it, an industry that has its very dark moments, right? And nobody in particular, just the way it works. You are the you are the picture of positivity. You really are. From the stuff that you do in Discord, I see how you lift people up, people that are having down days. I mean, listen, your pinned comment, okay, compliment somebody today. Could be a stranger, family member, a friend. Observe how it makes them feel, how it makes you feel, how it creates the momentum to do it again. It's huge because in this type of industry that we're going to talk about, there's some days where it's you talk about not positive. I mean, the negative just definitely outweighs it. So I really appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, I mean, that it's funny that pinned. So, you'll see a lot of like sports betting from me. You'll see I'll like retweet all the shows I do, like most people do on Twitter. Every once in a while, I'll just share something that I think is like a positivity type tweet. Now, I will admit, most people who read stuff like that kind of like might roll their eyes or be like, it's a little cliche. But the truth is, let's use that one as an example, the one you just read out loud that's pinned to my profile. If somebody were to actually do that, they'd realize it's not cliche at all. Like it's the easiest thing to do. Say hello to somebody, put a smile on somebody's face, compliment somebody, whatever it is. The momentum that creates for that person. And again, I'm not trying to get preachy. I'm just saying, like, you might internalize something as cliche, but then if you actually do the little thing that takes 3 seconds, you'll realize, oh, that actually improved my day and other people's days as well. It's really simple, but people just refuse to dial in. It's very simple.
It is. It's and not just simple, but it's powerful. That's the crazy thing, like just by, holding a door for somebody or giving somebody a smile or, even if you're letting somebody go in line somewhere or, you just in this world that we live in, so many people are under so much stress for all different types of reasons. And now nobody's ever really having a great day. And little things like that can literally not only turn around their day, but for me, and I'm sure you're the same way, if I give somebody a compliment or, I do something nice and they give that back to me, even with like a smile or a thank you, makes me feel great. Not because I'm like, hey, I want to pat myself on the back, but because like we can be a positive society at times. And I think we really lose sight of that. I do.
Well, I mean, again, not to harp on this too much, but we see in like today's society, unfortunately, like there's all this like political divide, divisiveness, cable news, social media, everybody's in their camps. What's funny about the hello thing or taking 3 seconds to compliment somebody and that type of back and forth that it can create is that you're doing that with people that might not be politically aligned with you, that might have said something super divisive on social media. You wouldn't know, but might have said something, super divisive on social media the day before, the week before, and it's opposite of what your viewpoint is. The truth is, though, you start to realize like, oh, those people that I supposedly hate or whatever, those people have like opinions and smiles that I can share with them too. Like they just become real people as opposed to like this camp, this tribe of people that like is not on my side. I just, again, it's super cliche, but you start to realize those people are people too, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, very, very well said. Very well said. And again, this is the No Sidelines interview series on the Tony Cutillo Show. I'm Tony Cutillo. This is Sia Nejad. And one of the reasons why I started this was simply because you're in it a lot deeper than I am. And not just the sports betting industry or the fantasy sports industry, but just, from giving up careers in order to pursue a dream, pursue something that you want to do. And let's be honest, in a very volatile industry that has
Mm.
so many people, whether they're getting laid off or they're switching jobs or contracts aren't getting renewed or they're hearing no every single day. My whole point was just to give people hope and inspiration, because a lot of times, when somebody keeps getting no, 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 it's like eventually, it'd be nice to see. It sounds weird, but just for somebody else to say, "Hey, I've been told no like 35 times too."
Mhm.
But, not to say, "Oh, I feel better that you got declined too," but no, that it's just not me, right? So, and I appreciate that, because I want to go back. Let me just answer this. When it all started, like, what what really gravitated you towards this type of lifestyle that you're doing right now?
So when I was practicing law, I just like everybody else who's a big sports fan, I thought, man, these people that are doing this stuff on TV or on the radio or sports betting wasn't necessarily like a thing at that point, but DFS was, and let's be honest, a lot of people were sports betting before it was legal. With all that said, we all have that notion like, hey, I can do that too, or at least I think I can do that too. And I got a little lucky in the sense that I got some like good advice, because in the 2010, 2015 era, I really wasn't on Twitter. I wasn't on social media. I wasn't trying to be like actively trying to be seen or get noticed or whatever. I was just practicing law, doing that. But I was able to meet somebody who was connected with CBS Sports, and their headquarters is down in Fort Lauderdale. He's the husband of an attorney that I worked with. And he just gave me some good advice one day when I was like, hey, man, give me a shot. I think I can do this. He's like, well, you might be able to do it, but you've got to build some sort of like profile. Like, I don't care who you are, how you sound. You can't just walk into a studio and be like, hey, I'm good at this. Like, let me audition. It's like, you got to get a Twitter profile. You got to like put some stuff on video one way or the other and have people actually see you so that you can actually get pitched to somebody. And Tony, you know this story just as well as anybody, because you used to do stuff for Win Daily. That was where I first put myself on video. I barely had a Twitter following. Met some people over at Win Daily, just like you did at a certain point in time. And I was able to put some stuff on film. And as I was doing that, this is where the pharma comes in. I had already dropped practicing law in 2017, jumped into pharma. I was doing that in South Florida. And that allowed me to basically do two jobs, to start the media job while doing the pharma job, because the hours were kind of weird. I was on my own time, stuff like that. And eventually I just kept building. I didn't really have a timeline in mind. I didn't have like a specific goal in mind. I was like, I know I'm good at this. I've got some building blocks to build off of now. Let me just see what happens. And I think that's the thing people get caught up with, is they're like, it has to be done by this certain time. I've got to get this type of feedback or this type of audience by the time I'm at this point. And that's just really not how it works. So I just kept trying to build and be visible and be in people's faces, but not in an annoying way. And then the next thing you know, 4 years later, after starting the pharma thing, I had to make a decision between media and continuing with pharma. And I just decided to follow my passion at that point.
The one thing that you'd say is something that I preach all the time. Now, we're two different mindsets in this, right? Where you are in the industry full time. Myself, I refused personally to go into it full time, only because I didn't want to deal with the volatility. That was just
Yeah.
me. That was my own decision. But what you say is so correct. What I say all the time is, even before I got in the industry, I was working a full-time job because I need to put money in my pocket. Like, I
Mhm.
have a family. I have bills. It was like, it's easy for someone that's like, I'm throwing everything away and I'm going towards this dream. And listen, I get it. However, you still need to be smart about it, and you need to be able to fund yourself. Use what you're doing as your day job to fund your passion, and to eventually get to where you're saying, come to that crossroads and be like, okay, the money's kind of like financially, I'm looking
Yeah.
at it like, you know what? Now it's time to tip it and go the other way. So I completely agree with that. I think that's something people lose track of. They think that people in the industry just start doing it full time, before they're getting any kind of monetary value. No, so many people are have full-time jobs. One of
Yeah.
the I'll tell you this, it's a funny story, but I never knew that. So when I first started getting into just sports in general, I wanted to be a Philly sports guy. And one of my favorite sports writers at that time, I've come to find out, he actually gave up what he was doing. And he was like, yeah, I found out he was like a full-time professor or a chemist.
Mm.
I was like, this guy, wait a minute, how does he actually has and he came out, was like, yeah, if I didn't have that job, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. And that's what made me think. I'm like, oh, damn. Like, so people are actually working plus doing this. I had no idea at that time.
That's the thing, is that when people say stuff like, and I don't say these exact words because they really are cliche, but when people say like chase your dream, or when they say go all in, people need to be really specific when they give that advice, because what people hear is, oh, drop this thing that I have that gives me security and jump into this thing that I love that I'm not getting paid for, but I'm really passionate about, so of course it's going to work out. That's not how it works, and I've never preached that. Like, and that's why when I tell the story, I say, I was making pretty good money in pharma, by the way. And for the record, I was making more money in pharma than I do right now in media. But that doesn't matter to me, because there's a baseline level that I can chase this with something I'm a little bit more passionate about. With all that said, I was doing both for a reason, because I knew I still needed to pay those bills. I still needed income coming in, and I needed to get to a place where I was making enough in the media realm to justify dropping the job. So going all in, it's not about plan A, plan B, but going all in is being able to support yourself and find the time to pursue your passion to get to that crossroad moment. I think that's the confusion. And when we go on Instagram or we go on Twitter and we see all these like cliche things, I think people are like, yeah, that's not really realistic. But that's, again, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying drop the thing you don't love very much for the passion project. I'm saying figure it out, do both. And you've been on my show, Tony, Sia Nejad Sports, which is now rebranded to Positive Works on my YouTube channel. But there's a really great quote from you when we were talking, and it's in one of my montages on Instagram. Like, you're featured in that, because it was about using your time wisely and putting yourself on a schedule that makes sense, where you can have your family time, you can have your job time, you can have your gym time, but you're allocating some time. It can be a little bit of time, but some time towards the thing you really want to chase. And you had this quote, you said, people think they don't have the time. Like, have you actually looked at it? You said it way more articulately than I could right now, but it was like, show me your schedule. You were like, show me your schedule and show me that you don't have the time to allocate 1, 2, 3 hours per day or every couple days to this thing that you love.
It's true, man. It's true. And it's funny. I'll bring it up. I just had this conversation with my daughter. So, my daughter she's going to be 26 years old, and she's working a full-time job. She's a licensed esthetician, and she works as a medical assistant. But she's still trying to start her way into running her own esthetician business.
Mm-hmm.
So she's doing exactly what we did. See, it's like she's working her normal full-time job, and then she's getting done that job and doing her passion job that she wants to be her career eventually down the line. And the first thing I said, she's a lot younger than me. And I said, well, she'd be like, I'm tired. I didn't do this. I said, hold on. Tell me when you don't have 15 minutes to post a video. Tell me when you don't have 15 minutes to sit there and study an article or study somebody else. Like, you're just making excuses. And that's the difference, in my opinion, to who makes it and who doesn't. Because the time is there. It is. And it's just a matter of, can you prioritize it the right way? And I don't say this to throw shade at anybody. I don't say this to prop myself up, but I continue to tell people, as just an example, because I preach what I've done, from working 84 hours a week, rotating shift work, to being, a constant coach, to seeing every single one of my kids' events, to still trying to find time to write sports articles and do sports betting content. Somehow, sometime I did it. And it's because I wanted it. And see, I think that's what it is. When you really want something, you don't just go at it recklessly. You find a way to prioritize everything, but still get to where you want to be.
Also, to work as smart as you can, just from a creativity standpoint, because I do think there's something to be said for really brainstorming, like if for your daughter's example, like she's trying to, from what I gather from what you just said, I hope I was listening properly. She's trying to open, she's doing her esthetician stuff, but she's trying to open basically her own business eventually. Like that's the
Yep.
goal. And I think for that example, or really any example where you're chasing something, okay, like give yourself 15-20 minutes maybe a week to like brainstorm. Have I talked to all my connections? Have I talked to people who can help me, who want to help me? A lot of people want to help, by the way. You know, if they can, they want to help. They want to be utilized in that capacity. And I know for me, I can't even really think of a specific example in the moment, but I know it's always been a priority to me to foster relationships with everybody that I like in the industry. And what that has resulted in is down the line, it's not immediate results, but down the line, those people will hit me up and say, hey, I've got an opening for my show. I usually have this person, but I've got an opening for my show. You want to come on for that guy or that girl? And then all of a sudden that blossoms into, you know, you're on that person's show like 5 times a year instead of just one time, or whatever the case may be. Working smart and brainstorming, like, okay, what are the things I can do to help myself beyond just working hard? I think there's something to be said to like getting a G2 Pilot pen, a white pad like I'm holding up right now that I carry with me every day with my iPads that I use for work, and just writing down some stuff that can help yourself a little bit.
That's so true. That's so true. I run through so many notes throughout the course of the day, and I've always said exactly what you said. I tell people it's relationships over money. And everybody's like, what do you mean? I'm like, listen, man, everything's about relationships. Like if you go into any style of work like this and you put a monetary value on everything you do, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Because you're trying too hard, right? Everything I've gotten because I worked for it, but it's coming when kind of like out of left field, this opportunity came from something I did over here, or this came from something I did over here. It's like, wow, I wasn't pursuing it, directly, but sometimes I think people get enamored with that almighty dollar and think that in the beginning, listen, you're not going to get paid for the stuff that you do in the beginning. It's just not what this industry is. And I want to go back because what you said is so key, where you said, I probably made more money in my previous employment than I do now. However, because that's huge. I tell people that all the time. Like I definitely right now, I don't make the money that I made 10 years ago, working 84 hours a week and ridiculous overtime and this and that. However, I'd probably be dead by now. I hated what I did. And I became fixated on a baseline to say, okay, where can my family live comfortably, not over my head, not rich by any means, but just to be able to say, hey, we can go out to dinner every once in a while. I pay my bills. Everybody's okay. If there's a hiccup here or there, I can figure it out, but I'm not killing myself every single day and I'm enjoying what I do. So I think that's something that you said, that's huge, man. That's key.
Well, the problem with the money part of it, I understand like people like money and there's very good reason for it. But I also feel like social norms drive the money as the ultimate goal too. Like people want to be able to say they make a certain amount. And again, money's great and money can provide a lot of things. But I also think there's a threshold level of money where, for me, by the way, the pharma thing, I was making a lot of money. If I was still practicing law, I'd be making more money than that, right? And it's funny, there was a moment. So every December we would have, just like any other company, I guess, we'd have like the yearly review. And at this point, I was like probably 7 or 8 years into my time at a law firm in South Florida called Kubicki Draper. And I remember I had one of those December interviews. There's usually 2 equity partners that are in there with you. And I was at a time where it was time for me to jump up from like regular associate to like junior partner or whatever. And the head guy of the law firm was like, yeah, so if you want to be junior partner, you got to do this, this, and this. And I was basically like, I never wanted to, like, I didn't say I wanted to be junior partner. So I actually asked him, I was like, what are the advantages of junior partner? And the funny thing is, his mouth just like dropped. He was stunned that I asked that question because he just assumed that I would want the little bit of extra money, mind you, a ton more responsibility, and that more importantly, I'd want that title of junior partner so that I could tell my mom and dad or whoever is important to me that, hey, I'm really like rising in the firm. And the truth is, that shit doesn't make me happy. It just doesn't. It might make other people happy because they've been tricked into thinking that labels really matter, but it didn't make me happy. And that's the whole reason I jumped out of law in the first place and jumped into pharma, which again, being an attorney, it probably would have been more lucrative than that. I've dropped income wise, like in theory, I've certainly dropped from discipline to discipline to discipline, but I really like what I'm doing. And so to me, that's the bottom line. It's not like I'm making no money, but the money part didn't drive me. And hopefully big money comes. I have no idea. But I know that I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and I chased it down. Here I am, and I hope it lasts. It is a volatile industry. That's the thing. So, but so is pharma, by the way. So I've kind of dealt with that before. So we'll wait and see. It's a wild ride.
No, I love it, man. I love it, and I want to get into that because I think is your longest tenured spot at CBS at Sportsline.
Yeah.
So you've been doing like the early edge for when I met you, you were doing the early edge. You were doing a lot of stuff with one of my favorite people you were doing stuff with Coach, correct?
Jonathan Coachman. Yeah, 100%.
Because I'm a big wrestling guy.
He's an incredible personality, an incredible host. And to his credit, I mean, he's really the person. And so this is the thing, like when you really, and Tony, you're so passionate when you're on your shows, like your energy is like palpable. Like again, I've come onto like your Phillies stuff, and I'm like, I don't care about the Phillies, but I'm like, I'll even get in your chat. I'll be like, I'm just going to listen to this. And I'll like literally be in the chat being like, I'm just captured by, you could be talking about anything and I'm in because of your energy. And, that's what Coach saw many years ago. And so he started bringing me onto a lot of shows. And then not only did I have the energy, but I also just like refused to miss days. And to this day, I don't miss days. And that's another thing. Like people can see that and appreciate that. Now he's not with CBS anymore, but other people at CBS see that and they recognize it and things of that nature. So, yeah, he was great. But the reason I bring him up in this context is that he and others saw what, the energy I was bringing to the table, and that mattered to them. And so that's just an important lesson for anybody trying to get into an industry is create that energy.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You have to, energy is, I think there's a limit to where you either have it, you can create it, but I don't think you can create all of it. Like you have to, and I think this goes back to the passion, because if you're passionate about something, you're going to get that energy because you're so passionate about what you're doing. And I remember, with Win Daily, you were one of the first people I met, and I could just tell the way you could articulate certain things. I was like, wow, this dude's got it. Like, and you were already doing things that I wasn't even doing, but I was like, this dude's got it. And I think the reason why we mesh so well is there's opportunities where we could be on, whether we're talking NBA or we're talking Major League Baseball, we could just completely go off the rails on a conversation, and the names and the stats and the stuff that we can bring out is pretty second to none. And you know why? It's because we're so passionate about what we do and what we love. Before this, I wasn't on a notebook, writing down stats of who my top 5 NBA players were of all and why. But I guarantee if we went on that conversation, that me and you we would throw out stats, we would throw out specific game moments because we actually lived it. And I think, you know what I mean? So stuff like that. And so when you went in the Sportsline, like, do you remember your first ever show that you did?
Yeah. So I had been doing the morning show, The Early Edge, which is the show I host now, Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock on the Sportsline YouTube channel. And so what was happening in that Sportsline YouTube channel was relatively new. It was only like a couple years old at that point. And they started doing primetime shows. So this was like kind of like my big moment. What happened was I was on the morning show like once or twice a week. I was kind of new to it. And they were doing like Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football and Sunday Night Football shows. And they brought me on to a Monday Night Football show. I offered the same energy, even then some, because it's NFL and all that stuff. And we did this fun segment. This is like a funny thing. It's like total chance. And maybe this probably didn't end up making a difference ultimately. But we did first touchdown scores at the end. I can't remember the name of the guy. It was like the 3rd string running back for the Ravens that was getting his first start, again, because of injuries and things. I'll find his name at some other time. And I was like, he was the starting running back, so his odds weren't extremely long, right? But they were like 11-1, 12-1 because nobody knew who he was, and the odds market wasn't going to like put him at 6-1 or something. So anyway, nobody had ever heard of this guy. He ends up being the first touchdown scorer. And then everybody's like retweeting me. It's like my first primetime show. And like at that point, I was like, oh my God, because I wasn't really on Twitter that much. I didn't have much of a following. All of a sudden, I've got like 2,000-3,000 followers because some big accounts are retweeting me and whatnot. And I think that was my moment where I was like, it was kind of lucky, by the way. It's not like I'm like some like wizard for getting the first touchdown score. Those are like really random, obviously. But I think that was the moment where I was like, oh, okay, so this is how you build a following. This is how you get recognized. And it wasn't just the first touchdown thing. It was just like being on a show like that and giving myself an opportunity to be on a show like that gave me the opportunity to like be visible. And to this day, like from a following standpoint, Twitter, it's like, I wish I had 5 times. Like I don't have that many followers. Ultimately, I would think at this point I'd have way more. But like it comes down to visibility. And from to your question, the first visibility that I got was on the early edge, like the first primetime show I did.
Those long shots are, I'll tell you, they're key. And you know what it is? It brings fun into it.
Thank you.
Right?
And gambling should be fun.
Yes.
Like I get it. We want to make money and all that. But if you're not having fun doing it, like you better be a pro. You better be doing that for a living because it should be fun to everybody else.
I listen. I totally agree. Same thing. I remember doing some of my first shows on Win Daily with Ghost, who was a guy who was just very numbers driven, kind of dry, right? But he was very smart. And when I started doing this, I came up with like a jigsaw crazy parlay, and he was like, "What is that?" And I was just like, just getting crazy. And I was like, I just want to have some fun. Like these, and I would always say, listen, these are attainable bets, but they're long shots. And it caught on. Everybody would tune in, like, hey, what's the jigsaw crazy parlay for the night? Just because it made it fun, man. And I think, like you said, you gotta insert the fun into this. You really do.
I mean, yeah. Otherwise, like what these shows would be like, they'd be like so tense. I like the early edge, for example. I try to be like pretty light. I mean, we want to win our picks and all of that stuff. And a lot of people on that show and a lot of these betting shows, by the way, are like super smart and the analysis is great. But like, if you can't keep it light, then it's just not going to be. It's not going to be long-term a fun show. And like just today, Tony, I was having like on that No Plays Off podcast, we were having like some like fun dialogue and I won't get into the story, but the long and short of it is based on that dialogue, some people like quote tweeted and were like, oh my God, this guy's like not a serious bettor at all. Like all of this stuff. And I'm like, oh, this was not a serious moment at all. Like why are people getting, and it was like the pro bettor, the guy that like, is doing it for a living. And like, I'm like, dude, not everybody's doing what you're doing, man. Like let the rest of us have a little bit of fun here, please.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And it's funny. I used to see that a lot. And because when I became into the Win Daily community, there was a lot, I wouldn't say a lot, but it was a percentage of really heavy, like just hardcore sports bettors. And they would always make, oh, look at this guy, he's just making a mockery. No, I'm not. I want to have a little fun. Like let's just lighten up. You'd be amazed at how better this show is going to go if we just lighten up and have a little fun, and we could still hit some bets and we could still maybe make some money. But at the same time, I don't have 4 screens in front of me. I'm not betting $30,000-$40,000 a day.
Right.
That's not this kind of show. And we never said it was going to be that guy.
That's exactly right. It's like, you don't have to make the bet, man. You don't even have to enjoy the content. You could watch something else if that's what you're into.
Exactly. It is crazy. So let me ask you, because I know you had at least have one time when you were rejected. Did you ever go for anything, or maybe an opportunity was presented to you and maybe you had to audition or go for it and you were turned down for any specific reason? What did that feel like, if that happened at all?
Well, it's funny because the first thing I think of, so one of the, I'm pretty, if you looked at me, you see my top button, you'd think I'm like pretty conservative in terms of like the things I would try to do, in spite of what you've already heard, like jumping from industry to industry to industry. But when you talk about failure, I think of something completely out. Like people don't know this really, but I auditioned for like kind of TV shows, but more like commercials in South
Okay.
Florida for years. In fact, my very dated Twitter like profile picture, which I really, I'm going to change tonight. It's so old. It's like 10 years old. It was one of like my modeling pictures, whatever.
I noticed that.
Yeah. It's anyway, the point is I use that to, those pictures to, land auditions and things of that nature. And again, I know this isn't really what you were asking, but I got rejected from other than one, I got rejected from like every audition, partly because I don't think I'm a particularly good actor, but also because there were a lot of like connections that people had in South Florida that I definitely didn't have. And so I'd walk into auditions and the casting person is like already hugging some of the like people that are auditioning and they're like good friends. And I'm like, all right, this is probably not going to go super well for me. So in that sense, I felt rejection. But what's interesting about that is I kept going back. I kept auditioning because I actually really enjoyed the experience, knowing that I was pretty much going to get rejected at every audition. I actually felt like I was learning each time and like just kind of like not necessarily like becoming a great actor or commercial person or anything, but like the experiences in the meeting people, like still I thought was like really cool. I was making some connections, like new friends and stuff like that. In the betting world, in this industry, I can't think there were definitely things I didn't necessarily get that I thought like I'd be good for, but I mean, there's not like some like big story where like, man, I wish I had gotten this, and I
Hey,
did.
no, listen, I mean, that's just enough. Because again, rejection, it can really turn you down a path of self-destruction all the time. And it's not easy to deal with. And I see it a lot,
Well,
and
so
especially in this industry.
part of rejection, though, if I could recontextualize the question, is just not making it to where you want to be. It's not like somebody like literally like wagged a finger in your face and said, no, you're not allowed to do this, or no, you're not getting this job. But yeah, of course, that's rejection in like the truest sense. But a lot of times rejection is just like not getting to where you thought you'd be at this point. And there are circumstances where that applies to me. I mean, I mentioned this is kind of like a nothing thing, but like Twitter following, like I want to be, and I know Tony, you do as well. I want to be more visible to people, whether it's Twitter or just my YouTube page or whatever it is. You have a lot to say, Tony. You're very passionate about what you do. I'm sure it frustrates you that there aren't more eyes on you. There aren't more people saying, hey, Tony, come jump on this show. And so that's definitely happened to me. And I definitely think, yeah, I've only been in the industry for a certain amount of time, but I feel like it's not that I deserve it. I feel like I probably could have had more opportunities to be more visible. And for whatever reason, that's not happening. And so I don't necessarily think that's a failure, but it's certainly a frustration.
Works on you, right?
Yeah.
It worked. Like I'll be fully transparent, and you don't know this. I'll put this right out there. My own personal experience. Last year, out of the blue. Now everybody knows, I was on Sirius for a while, and I was hosting part of the Win Daily show. And one thing I will say, this is just a lesson to everybody. It's go back to connections. So when I was brought on to do that, I developed a really good relationship with the channel manager, the production manager, Jacob. And I would talk to Jacob a lot. And one of the things that's always hurt me as a talent is I'm an independent. I don't work for a company. Right. And the way that Sirius works, they like people that work for a big company, whether it be RotoWire, whether it be Fantasy Alarm. Like that's kind of the way the inner workings of that station work. So last year, I got a out of the blue message from a guy, and it was for another show that they were starting. And he said, "Hey, Tony, we were looking for a host for this show, and Jacob, you were the first guy Jacob referred me to. He said, give Tony." And again, that to me, that meant a lot. Like I'm on this guy's list. Like I don't have an affiliation. I'm just Tony. But he thought so highly of me, he put me on this list. So long story short, I was in a running to host a solo show for 2 hours for a 1-year contract, and I thought I was getting it. I was a little cocky. I was like, I think I got this, man. And I was pumped, and then I got let down because it didn't go to me, and not because of anything I did, but because it went to somebody else who was with a bigger company that they had an affiliation with. So that sucked. Like that put me down for like 2 weeks because I was like, damn,
Yeah.
like I really thought I had this. And then it made me start to question, like, man, am I ever going to get something like that? And, maybe because I'm not affiliated with, a bigger outfit and I am just me. I don't have anybody behind me, so to speak. So it did mess with me for a little while. And it took me a little while to get over it, man, to be honest with you. And then I just kept moving on and just kept trying to do my own thing. So I understand when you get like it can really spiral you for real.
I'm curious because I know like a lot of your work is in the PR department as well. I'm always so big on like trying to be creative and brainstorming, and that it's easy to say those two words, but like what does that actually mean, right? So with you not having like a big company behind you, for example, and not getting that opportunity, I'm just curious. I'm not trying to turn this into
No,
like a show about you necessarily, but I'm just curious, like how do you take that knowledge that you don't have what they were looking for, not you personally, but you as like a company and
yep.
whatever. I'm just curious because I do think there's some brainstorm that's probably warranted there. Like, okay, so how do I get in? How do I leverage Jacob's good opinion of me somewhere else where they can put me and people can see me? Because those questions don't have really easy answers. But if
No.
you can find an answer to them or some semblance of an answer, it can potentially like put you in the place where you want to be. And sometimes I ask those questions and I don't have answers. And that's where the pen and paper come in. And I still don't have answers sometimes.
No, you know what? And I, I've had conversations with them, and it's kind of one of those things where, understanding how now that we're just talking about this one specific station, but knowing how it works, right? So
Mhm.
knowing how their work, like, and I'm being fully transparent. These companies, they're paying for airtime. They're not getting paid, right?
Right.
So that's what another thing people don't understand. So you essentially have company A, right? Like say right now there was a company called No Sidelines. That's the company, and Tony and Sia work for No Sidelines. Well, No Sidelines is going to pay Sirius an extraordinary amount of money in ad revenue and say we want to have a slot for 2 hours and it's going to be on Sunday nights. Now, No Sidelines has to get their host together, but it's not Tony and Sia, it's No Sidelines, and Tony and Sia are actually affiliated with that company to be able to host that show.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like so in my mind, again, it was like, okay. Now what do I want to do? Do I want to put a media reel together? Should I pitch every company that has a platform, Fantasy Life, Fantasy Alarm, Sports Grid? Do I just throw a media reel out there and be like, hey, listen, if you guys are ever looking for hosts, maybe I'll do that. So I did do that.
Hmm.
And so what happened was what came out of this, excuse me, what came out of that was I didn't get a hosting gig, but it wound up getting me. I was probably about 7 to 8 months. I was on VSiN every single Tuesday night, and I was their MLB guy. And we would, I was on Cash and Out, and it got to a point where I was doing it for a while. And to be honest with you, it was tiring because it was a late slot. It was at 12:45 Eastern
Mm.
because they're obviously broadcasting a circuit,
Yeah.
'cause right in Vegas. So, see, I was honest, like it was working on me. I'm 47 years old, and I was like, I'm beat. Like
Mhm.
I'm staying up, and I wasn't sleeping right, and I was like, I can't do it. So, and there was, I had to give it up. And listen, health over everything else. But I think the moral of the story is I was able to find some kind of avenue, but maybe not exactly what I wanted, but it did weigh on me for some time.
What's interesting though, again, we don't have to harp on this too much, but
Yeah,
like No Sidelines, you like, which is what this brand is right here, sells better to what you're talking about with the series, whether it's Sirius XM Fantasy or another Sirius XM channel,
right.
by the way. It sells better than, and this is something I wouldn't have even thought of because I don't really have much of a business mind, sells better than Tony Cutillo
Yes.
or would than Sia Nejad. So what I think is interesting there is that if you were to pitch No Sidelines and you had a guy, well, could be anybody, could be me, could be anybody, and it could be any Sirius XM channel where you're like, I can do 2 hours of like really good. And again, that's easier said than done. But if you're pitching it as No Sidelines, my company No Sidelines with hosts Sia and Tony, I think that's different than, hey, I'm Tony and I can do this. And that's just something I wouldn't have necessarily thought of. And it's useful just by talking to you like that. We have, like, at least I've come to an understanding of what would be more sellable.
Yes. And that's exactly, and again, it's different from station to network, right? You know, it's completely different. And one lesson, see, and I'm sure you have this, is, you know, keep your content. You know, like, yeah, it's one thing that I've done, you know, over the years. I mean, I remember my first radio interview was probably 2013, 2014, and I still have it today. And I have a file of every single appearance I've ever made. Wow. I have media reels. So, and I say this, and when we do the show, this is where it's unfiltered, unscripted. And I say this as a learning for anybody watching this. And I'll give you an example of why you need to do this and why this works. Now, nobody knows this right now. So I'm gonna throw it out there because don't know. So I am in the hunt again this year. I was just had a conversation yesterday about hosting a 1-hour show on Sirius. And the person got back to me and he said, listen, the only hesitation they have right now is they're non-committal yet because they've never heard you solo host. And I said, listen, I'm not cocky. I'm very confident. I said, dude, I'll solo host for 3 hours and not miss a beat. I'm like, so give me a second. I went in my files. I sent them 4 different media reels of me doing streams live for 2 hours straight, me doing shows live for 45 minutes to an hour, run sheets that I did, book guests that I booked, everything solo. And he got right back to me. He's like, dude, this is amazing. He's like, thank you. I really needed this so I can advocate for you. Now, all I'm saying is the reason why I bring that up is if I didn't have that, or I said, hey, let me get back to you in like a week. Let me go find it together, right? So the point of this is, for everyone's listening, what I did one time with time, I finally said to myself about a year ago, I'm going to put all these reels together. And I did. And what I did was I put these reels together and I put them on YouTube, not for people to see, just to run unlisted in the background. So if anybody ever wants to check me out, I just send them a link. Boom. Check out my reel. Check out this reel. Check out that reel. I got one for basketball, football, baseball, DFS, sports betting, like you name. And I say that because you notice, say, you have to be ready. Like you have to have that ammo. So just a little lesson to everybody out there.
I can't think of a better solo host than you. I'm not saying that there isn't. I'm not saying there isn't one. I just, like, off the top of my head, like to host a solo show about so many different types of topics, including just like generic type topics. Yep. You, like, I don't know anybody, and that's a skill. Like, it makes sense that he asked you that question, right? Because some people, like, I personally don't think and I haven't really been put in this position a ton, but I don't think I'd be a very good solo host. I think for an hour, for a long period of time, you are really good at it. So I hope you get that. If you don't get that, I hope you get something else, whether it's solo or otherwise. That's great. On Sirius, I'm talking.
No, listen, man, I appreciate it. I mean, I've been told, I've actually been rejected because I've been told I've been too powerful. And meaning, like, if there was a show between two people, a lot of people are like, look, I just can't because you kind of overpower. You know, not that it's my fault. Like, it's just my personality. Like, I don't know any other way. You know what I mean? Like, that's just me. So when they said that to me, I was like, okay, I understand their hesitations, but I'm telling you right now, like, I have no issue. So here you go. So we'll see what happens. But it was just a kind of a point to everybody. This, you know, make sure you're prepared. Like, use all the stuff that you do. Goes back to what you were saying. Say you were saying, you know, start, whether it's YouTube, start putting yourself out there, getting yourself on camera, doing a podcast, doing little clips on TikTok. You know, whatever that stuff is, learn it, because it's all going to be able to be used as kind of like your own digital media reel, and that's what really happens.
Yeah, and even if it's not like super high quality, I mean,
Right.
obviously, like you don't have to put everything out, but like just getting the reps in and just getting like reps in, not just like being in front of a camera, but like editing and like stuff that I'm still not super sophisticated at, but like I can like cut a video and stuff like that. And with AI can like add captions and that stuff is all free for the most part. Like just doing that type of cadence will empower you to be like, oh, I can do these other things that are associated with the actual like camera thing. So if I can practice the camera thing, I know I can put the whole package together. I mean, Tony, I think I have this on my computer somewhere. The first time I started like practicing podcasting was actually with a couple of my friends from Seth and Ramel from, like college years and law school years. But after that, they got busy. And so I would like go in my condo complex. I would go up to an empty room because my condo was too small to do it where like whatever. So I would go up to an empty like space on the top floor of my condo complex. And I would literally record a podcast by myself just to be like, how does this sound? Like, not because I wanted to put it out. I'll never put it out. How does this sound? How does my energy sound? I went back and listened to it and I'm like, oh, this is kind of sketchy here, but this sounds good. And again, I wasn't like empowered by that necessarily. I wasn't like, oh my God, I really am so good. It was more like, oh, okay, this is how this sounds. Like, what do I think I can do to make this sound even better? And that's like step one. Even if you're not going to put it out there, like do stuff and just see where you're at and then improve upon it.
And the other thing, what you just said, which is key, is where you're doing it. I'm a big, and I'm sure you probably follow him because everybody does, and I'm a big Gary V fan. And one thing that Gary V taught me was hearing him talk about people as far as content. And for me personally, it was always I wanted perfection. Like I wanted the perfect background, I want the perfect edit, I want the perfect topic, I want everything. And Gary Vee just kept preaching, listen, man, stop trying to worry about being perfect to people. He's like, you just need to get it out there. If you're confident in yourself, get it out there. And it took me a while to get there. And then that's kind of when stuff started taking off. I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to go hit record. Like we're doing right now. There's no script. We're just hitting record, and we're talking and we're having an unfiltered conversation about the industry and about what we've done and the obstacles that we face. And that's when things started really working. When I was like, you know what? Now I can record 7 videos instead of 2. Those 7 may not be like, oh my God, look at that. But you know what? If your information and your energy is good, doesn't really matter. People are going to gravitate towards it.
Thinking you need to be perfect is the best reason you never did anything at all. That's just the bottom line. And again, that doesn't mean you should like shuffle out a product that has like nothing to it. But it also means you don't need to be at this high standard that you see on TV or see on some popular podcast or show. Like just get it out there, see where you're at, and improve upon it.
No, it's so true. So true. So let me ask you about the sports betting industry. How, from the time that you started to where we're at right now, just the industry as a whole, how has it really evolved? And what do you see kind of like the future? Because right now it's very saturated. So, like, what have you seen over probably the past 5 years ago, up and down?
It's interesting because when I first got into that part of the industry, I was really insulated by like Sportsline and like my little community on the early edge and CBS Sports and whatnot. And I really other than the specific sports that I do, like I mean, I'll bet basketball here and there and baseball here and there, but I'm really like an NFL and PGA better. And I knew the people inside those circles, and they were kind of like the same type of people, same type of sports bettors that I was accustomed to with like my little universe. It only occurred to me in the last like few years that this universe is way more vast than I thought it was. And like I'm not like an idiot, like I'm not naive. I understand that it was a big industry, but like when I start to see, like I told that story on Twitter today, there's these accounts that like I've never even heard of, never even seen. These are like massive accounts that are like, and then I see over the last couple of years, there's a lot of like, just the scammer types that are getting in there and just like charging people for picks and whatnot. And it's like that's definitely out there too. And we live in a place where, you can really take advantage of people, whether it's sports betting or otherwise. You can really take advantage of people. So, I try to be as transparent as possible. I try to be as light as possible, because I'm also trying to talk to the person that's trying to make money, trying to win bets, but also like keeping it like relatively light. So I kind of like stay in my lane there. I don't propose to be a professional bettor. I'm not necessarily speaking to professional bettors, although some of the bettors that I come across are betting lots of money. I see that because of the Discord and Twitter. They're like posting stuff, and it's like, oh my God, you bet a lot on that. You bet way more than I did on that. But to be honest with you, it's so fractured. It's a little insidious. It's a little scammy. But guess what? Every other industry is like that too. This one just happens to be gambling related. So I'm not like taken aback by it, but I also like it. It's not the healthiest industry, that's for sure. But again, if you stay in your lane and you promote yourself how you truly are, then like you're going to attract that type of audience. And then the rest of the people could go where they go.
Nah, it's a good point. It really is. It's because listen, there's bad in every industry, right? There just is. And it's just you trying to create your own lane and then find the proper lane that you want to be in with the right people. I say it all the time. Now, what is more of if you had to pick, if you could only put one sports bet in, like a prop bet or a DFS contest, what would you rather do?
Oh, that's a good.
Okay, so do one.
So you can only do one, but are you asking more fun or more profitable?
No, I'm just saying more like just not even talking about profits. If more fun for your passion, if you could sit there and run, future props or whether it be anything or a DFS ticket, what would you rather do?
I think DFS is more fun. Because the reason is it's kind of like, I don't bet a lot of parlays necessarily, but like it's that parlay thing where it's like if I hit a stone cold like masterclass on a PGA lineup or an NFL DFS lineup, that $100 entry or that $20 entry or 15 or whatever it is, 33 can turn into like $10,000. And in betting, you're generally just doing straight bets, and you might be doing props, you might ladder them, but you're not necessarily hitting that, that play for like 10K or 5. And I've hit 10K in DFS before. It's been a long time, if I'm being honest. The sweat for that is more enjoyable, I think.
Was it golf or football to 10?
It was golf.
I figured that. Yeah.
I've hit football for like, in the like 5,000 range and maybe 7,500, but I remember hitting 10K. I think it was the Masters. I came in second place in like $100 single entry, a big one, and I got 10K for it. So that was fun.
So golf or football? If you could only do one.
If I could only watch one, it's football. It's not close. If I could only bet one, it's PGA, because I get a 4-day sweat versus a 3-hour sweat, or let's say 6-hour sweat on a Sunday. And that is a massive, massive difference.
And listen, you were one of the what is it, the first round leaders?
Yeah.
I remember that, man. You were hitting them with the persistence, man, like all the time.
I was hitting them in one like 12-week stretch. I was hitting them at such a rate that it like kind of didn't make sense. It was like the luckiest thing ever. Like I do try to incorporate some skill in it. Like, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But there came a point where it was like silly. And those are not good bets those are fun bets to make. And like my serious bets are my matchups, my round matchups, like outrights to some degree. But again, I like having fun. And it just so happens sometimes when you're having fun, you can make money too. Sometimes you don't, but sometimes you do.
There's nothing like it, man. I had a weekend. It's so funny. I remember it was like 3 years ago in football that I hit two. It's crazy. Two jigsaw crazy touchdown parlays where one of them was plus 4. It was a 44.87, and the other one was like over plus 6,000, and it was like insane. And everybody's like, "Oh my God!" I said, "Yo, guys, listen." Like, yeah, I did research some of this, but to get all three, like one of them was like an Alex Pierce like touchdown in the corner of the end zone. Like,
yeah,
bro, like this doesn't happen every week. You know what I mean? But it's just crazy. It's fun. A lot of fun.
Well, that's the thing. Like we're reflecting on that silly,
Yep.
bet that you made that you like, if we're being honest, like you probably shouldn't have made, just like I shouldn't make a lot of my first round leader bets or the SGPs or whatever. But guess what? How many years ago was that? 3, 4?
Oh, this was 3 years ago.
Okay, so it's 3 years later, and you're smiling because you're reflecting on a parlay you made that actually hit. And
Yep.
again, I understand that those parlays are, the books love those, but I also understand we're trying to have some fun here, and it's 3 years later, and we're talking about that, and you have a smile on your face. There's something to be said for that as well.
I agree. I agree, man. Looking back, anything that you would do differently, if you could change anything, would you do something differently up to this point?
It's a good question. I would have like this is kind of a generic answer. I think I'd have a little bit more faith in myself. In other words, I think I would have probably jumped out of law a little bit earlier. I didn't hate practicing law, by the way, but I certainly didn't like it. I loved the people I worked with. My relationships were always good, but I kind of got lucky that I got pulled out of law. I got lucky because it was a poker buddy of mine that was a kind of a manager at this really great dermatology company called Galderma. And because we were friends and we played poker together, like he ended up, long story short, recruited me out of practicing law. But I kind of like, part of me wishes I had the courage to be like looking around prior to that I didn't have this person, like, because if he wasn't there, for all I know, I'd still be practicing law. I have no idea. So just having faith in myself to maybe have started media before I got into pharma. And still, again, to your point earlier, still done the law thing. I'm not quitting anything to jump into this new thing, but to like have had those wheels turn a little bit earlier. It's not that my future would be better necessarily, but just like internally, I'd be more comfortable with the idea that like I was making my own future as opposed to waiting for some opportunity that fell into my lap. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that's like, I think people need to understand that you don't realize your potential if you don't even try. And if you're not happy with what you're doing, you got to keep doing it, but at least try to do some of the other stuff that might make you happy and see where it takes you.
I love that. I love that. That's a great, that's a really, really good answer, man. It's a very, very good advice. And speaking of advice, and we'll start to wrap this up. There's somebody out there right now, man. They're me, you, and they have a dream. And I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but what kind of advice would you give, knowing the industry right now the way it is compared to when you started, because it's obviously changed a little bit, and that person out there like, man, you know what, it doesn't have to be a young kid, but maybe they're a midlife crisis, and they're in between careers or doing this for a passion, they want to pursue this. What kind of advice would you give them?
First of all, the pad and paper thing, as opposed to like computer stuff, it sounds so like immaterial, but like have a pad and paper that you lean on like a lot, and take some time per week. Doesn't have to be every day. A couple of times per week where you brainstorm what you want to do and some practical steps to how you can get there. And those practical steps could be like writing down the name of somebody that that you can text or call. The other thing I would do, if you're especially like with this industry, I'd be as active as possible on, and I'm not even really good at anything other than Twitter, but I'd be active on social media. I would, before reaching out to people, I'd start like liking people's content. I would retweet people's content, get their attention, start trying to build your own content, or at least just build your own social media profile so that you don't look like some anonymous person without like a avatar or something. And then eventually, as you're, following people you like and maybe, liking their content, maybe you start putting out your own content. Maybe that gets seen, and then you reach out to those people you like. Establishing some sort of connecting point with even people you don't know, I think, is an avenue that people just don't really bother with. I know people who just like don't even bother with Twitter, but they're trying to make it in this industry. And I'm like, that's great, but why wouldn't you bother with social media too? Like why wouldn't you do both? It doesn't take a lot of time. So those little things I think can propel you to like actually feeling like you've got a real chance to do something.
Listen, I mean, the social media thing is huge. Whether it's one platform or 10 platforms, it's a vision. That's how you get seen. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest. I said this before to somebody. I said, there is no more, in my opinion, anyway. There is no more. I'm just a podcaster, or I'm a YouTuber, or I'm a streamer. Like, you are digital media. Like when you start and you hit the ground running, you are in the digital media space. And now there's all different layers and levels, but that's what you are now because
Yeah.
everybody's doing it. See it? Like
Mm.
everybody, right? Big companies, small companies. And you have to be in that circle. You have to
Yeah.
insert yourself in there.
And I also think, and again, easier said than done. Being creative, finding a niche, like having a certain amount of energy that maybe your peers or people you see don't have, like having a way to separate yourself, whether it's the content or the way your show is or whatever your vision is, that if you can somehow make that just a little bit different, I think that's a way to separate yourself. And again, as you're trying to have these connecting points to people who are doing maybe bigger things, maybe they notice you, they like your idea, they want to jump on your show, you invite them on your show, you jump on there, and all of a sudden people will be like, oh my gosh, this guy has, Tony on his show or Pat Mayo or whatever it is. Like, those things are not unattainable. You just have to like make those connecting points. I think that's super important.
No, I agree, man. Collaboration is key, man. And again, make sure you follow him, Sia Nejad at Sia Nejad. It'll all be in the description. See, man, this was a fantastic hour, man. Just kind of the conversation. We said a lot of amazing things and a lot of great structure for people out there, man. I appreciate it.
I'll say this. I hope I didn't come off as like too preachy or too cliche in some of these moments. But what I will say is if there's anybody out there that I know they know they can reach out to you. If they want to reach out to me in any way, if they want to join the Discord, which is not a sports betting Discord, it's just like talking through stuff, positivity, like some people have struggles. Some people want to share positive stuff. It doesn't really matter one way or the other. Feel free to reach out to me. It's not hard to find me.
And I'll make sure because I am a part of that Discord. I'm not always active. However, I will make sure that is linked in the description so people can just go there directly because it's a very powerful community. And again, there's people in there that like one of the guys like Japan. Japan's the guy who hops on my shows and constantly calls in, does like huge supporter. And I would again, it's all collaboration, right? I wouldn't have known anything about that, Japan if it wasn't for Win Daily or Sirius or or Discord. So a lot of different things that happen behind the scenes, man. It's pretty cool.
It's very cool. And I'm happy to come on anything you do. I've never not enjoyed being on a show with you, whether it's fantasy sports radio or any of the other ventures. It's always a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate that. If I get that spot, brother, guess who's going to be the first guest? Just throwing it out there.
I'm in.
I'll just throwing that out there, brother. Just throwing that out there.
If you need a reference, somebody that, hey, who's got your back? You make sure you let me know too. And I'll say the same about my stuff. You can be a reference for me, I hope. Because,
always, brother. Always, man. I appreciate it. As always, man. For everybody, this is the No Sideline Show. No media spin, just the answers. Like I always say, man, make sure you like, subscribe, obviously. But everybody, again, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you back here on the next episode.